Yeah, let's dive in. Yeah, I'm interested to see what comes up when I think about mindfulness and being.
Yeah. Well, I'll
Yeah,
actually
right.
ask you
Mindfulness is awareness, right?
yeah, exactly. That's all it really is. Are you, before I even get started, are you do you meditate?
I do.
Okay, great. Then I'll
Yeah, and I've been doing a lot of authentic relating recently. I don't know if you know about the AR movement, but in the last year, I've been training, and it's all about being aware of what's happening in your body and what are your emotions and what's happening when you're with another human being. Most humans don't even know what's going on inside. So if you want, we could get into that too.
yes, let's do it. Let's
All right.
do that 100%. Okay, so I'm gonna actually just do the intro here, just read my little short paragraph, and then
Yeah.
I'll get right into it. So, a former consulting actuary to Fortune 100 companies, including Sony Music, Chanel, and Exxon, David left his cushy Park Avenue job 20 years ago to build the world's largest coaching business. He became and ranked #1 on Google for life coaching, serving an audience of 150,000 coaches and coaching thousands of hours across 12 countries. David can be found on playforreal.life. So playforreal.life. You can find David. And he believes that tough conversations that we avoid are the doorways to confidence, success, and love in both work and life. And that's exactly why I thought he would be an amazing guest to have on this podcast. So, David, thank you so much. I'm truly grateful to have this conversation with you over the next 45 minutes.
My pleasure, Justin. I'm looking forward to it. I like the mindfulness angle, and I can definitely use more of that. So
We all
I'm,
can,
I'm
right?
I'm even more mindful right now, just knowing that that's the topic.
What are you sipping on there? Is that coffee or tea? Tea.
Mm, this is tea, Chinese breakfast tea.
Chinese bread. Is that so? This is just random question, but that mug looks massive. Is that just the picture of it, or is that really huge mug?
It's huge. I don't like other cups seem little to me. I like to have a really good solid cup of tea. So I went onto Amazon and I found a big mug.
Yeah, for anybody listening, it's like probably the size of like two of my hands. So,
Yeah.
but so David is out in Boulder, Colorado, as we're speaking here. And the first question I want to ask you, I actually ask every one of my guests that come on, David, and it's when you wake up and start your day, and you go throughout your day, what truly right now in your life, what makes your heart like fill up? What makes it just sing out loud every single day?
My puppy.
Uh,
Yeah, I got a puppy about 7 months ago, and just looking at her, or she comes and looks at me, and she's like trying to work out what's going on, and my heart opens, and there've been times when I just start crying.
what kind of dog is it?
She looks like a corgi shepherd. She's got little legs, a long body, face looks like a German shepherd, and that's not what kind of dog she is, but she looks like that.
Yeah. And what's her name?
Bella.
Bella. What do you think it is about? And this is just to follow up with that. What do you think it is about dogs that give us that feeling of love like that?
Well, she's my partner. I know it sounds silly, but she's my partner. I'm single right now.
Yeah.
She's with me every day. She sleeps in my bed. It's very intimate. And I realized yesterday that we are communicating over time. She's learning what's okay with me and what's good with me and what's not. And the fact that when I put my socks on, she will bite my socks and bite my feet and take my feet in her mouth. She knows how hard she can bite.
uh,
So she's learning, and I'm learning what's good with her, and to kind of track her moods, and she's not going to like that, and I better move slowly here, or I'm going to startle her, or that's play behavior. She wants me to chase her right now. um, so I love that intimacy and that communication, and I realize people say dog is man's best friend, um, more appropriately human's best friend, and I see why. They just hurt. My her world largely revolves around mine, and I really enjoy that attention. It doesn't revolve around mine when she spots a deer when we're out on a walk, or there's a really good smell. Then I'm totally secondary. But back in the house, it's generally feels really good to have that attention. So
Yeah.
that's what I've been thinking about as to why dogs are such an amazing companion.
Yeah, I'd imagine, especially like if you're the only one in the house to have a dog, it's like a whole different life. So,
Yeah.
um, I want to talk about tough conversations specifically in a little bit. I know before we started this, we briefly touched on meditation, and most of my guests, I would, except for maybe one or two, are daily or almost daily practitioners of practicing meditation or yoga or something like that. What does your practice look like right now?
Well, it seems funny to call it a practice. Yeah, I guess I judge myself because compared to other people, but I discovered yoga maybe 20 years ago, and I'm so glad I did. I need it to survive. My neck and shoulders get really tense.
Mm.
And so before I go to bed, I need to do some yoga. Now it's not like, it's not like an hour of positions and whatever. I just know the positions that feel amazing to me. And I'll do about 15 seconds of each one that opens up my shoulders and my neck. But I'll do that 3 times a day, or at least twice a day, because I also need to lay down. I've had some kind of fatigue for like 10 years. And when it comes to say 2 o'clock, my body needs a reset. My brain needs a reset. So I've learned to lay down, and either I'll breathe myself, or I'll listen to a trance MP3, some kind of hypnosis tape
Mm.
to drop me into a trance. And I don't sleep. I try to, but I never do. I just get super relaxed if it's a good one. And then I come out of it recharged. So that's my meditation, lying down, super
Mm.
comfortable. And I do it for 20 minutes.
20
Now,
minutes.
it's interesting that we're having this conversation today, because the last 3 days I've decided I'm not going to lay down. I'll sit up and I will meditate. And it's different. It really does feel different. I feel less relaxed, um, and I feel more mindful. I haven't listened to a tape or anything. I've just been like, all right, I'm going to be with whatever's here. So that's my current practice.
Yeah, I love that because there's definitely difference between laying down and sitting up, where your spine is, straight and compared to when you're in like what the yogis would call, oh God, now I'm drawing a blank, but corpse pose. Corpse pose when you're laying down flat with your arms by your side. So do you need that? Like, you said 20 years ago you found yoga, and it like you need it for survival, I think you said. And is that, you help a lot of people, you coach a lot of people. Is that part of what keeps your energy up and keeps your like purpose going forward stronger? Or is there other factors to that you incorporate in your life?
I like the question. I hadn't thought about that in that way. I yeah, I I need the coaching and the training and the inspiration. Without that, I think I'll be pretty lost. I'm not really good at just going on vacation and having a week of lying on the beach. I could read a book, but I kind of want something to do, and I want something that inspires me. And I got out of touch with coaching for many years, because what happened is I became so successful at coaching, and I created 10 information products, books and CDs, and I was #1 on Google for life coaching. And I let go of my coaching practice because now I was serving coaches, and I had this digital company, and I lost touch with the fact that I was having an impact. And also, it's a moneymaker to help people create their own businesses and escalate their businesses. And so I think that's one thing that drew me to that. But I was like, when am I going to get back to just working with people on their lives? We can still do their business, but when can I do the life stuff and the tough conversations and the courage? And how's your relationship with your kids and your wife and your husband and yourself? And finally, I got burned out and retired, semi-retired in the rice paddies of Bali. And then one day something happened. The universe kicked me out of my nest rudely, and I had to leave Bali the same day and leave aside a little side business that I had. And it was like, what am I going to do now with my life? I have to reinvent myself. And fortunately, a good friend said, why don't you go back to coaching? You're a great coach. Why don't you do that? And it was one of the best things I could have heard, because I did identify when I did a visioning process once that what has me really lit up is when I'm coaching or training. I get inspired. And so last 2.5 years, I've been rebuilding my coaching business and working out who's the ideal person that I feel lit up by when I'm coaching. And I like it. I get to talk to people like you and have conversations about life, and I keep on having insights and writing them down,
Yeah.
creating video clips, sending them out to the world. So it makes a big difference in my life.
Yeah, I love how you mentioned a little while ago, earlier when I asked you the question. You said you forgot or didn't realize the impact you were having on other people, or something along those lines. And I can totally empathize with, just the small majority of people that follow me and I post something. I always think, if it could affect one person, and the reason I do this podcast, if one person can take something from this, then it was worth my time to do this, because I have the energy and the availability to do it. Tough
Yeah.
conversations, right? So were you always, so I know you, I want to put this in quotations, a tough conversation expert, right? And how to get around that. I want to ask about that. But were you somebody that always was able to have these, or was there was there a time in your life when, you were more tiptoeing around those kind of conversations?
Um, the second, for sure. And, these days, I'm not even calling it tough conversations.
Okay.
That's useful, but it also kind of suggests to the mind that it's going to be tough. And sometimes it's actually easy. Often the toughest part is with ourselves
Right.
leading up to it. So now I like to call it speaking truth.
Ah, okay.
It's really about, like, what are all those desires you have that have been unexpressed with people? What are your annoyances and tolerations
Mhm.
that have been unexpressed because you don't want to rock the boat, or you're not quite sure how to speak up? And as a kid, I didn't know how to speak up to bullies, and I didn't know how to speak up to girls. And I really wanted their attention, and I wanted to date, and I had no idea how to do it. And each time I have something, either something that I don't like and I don't speak up, or something that I do like or want and I don't speak up, I feel smaller and I regret it. And I like myself a little less. And that was my life growing up. And then I stumbled into a personal growth course. I nearly didn't do it because they all wore name tags and they were smiling way too much.
Who was it? Do you remember who it
It
was?
was Landmark Education, the
Landmark.
Landmark Forum.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was like, you guys look very cultish, but I'd done almost no personal growth work. And I was 27 at the time. And I was unhappy in my marriage. And I'm like, I need to get in. I'll get in and get out, because I don't want to be a self-help junkie. I saw self-help people as weak for some reason, and anyway, they cracked me open. And they cracked my heart open, and I got a taste of coaching. I couldn't help myself. If someone got stuck and they're saying they got stuck, I would help them get unstuck, and I changed someone's life overnight. And I'm like, this is amazing. And then when I found someone was had a business card that said coach, I'm like, what? Like, this is back in 97.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? So that got me interested. But the tough conversations, I think it started back then because Landmark is really big on you cleaning up your past. And so they'd have me start to create lists of people. And initially I didn't have anybody on my list. But as we went through, and they'd ask, well, is there anybody you resent? Like, oh yeah, there's that guy. There's that guy from summer camp. I still hate that guy. All right, he goes on the list. And then they'd be like, well, is anyone you feel guilty about, like that you could apologize to? I was like, yeah, I really used to pick on this guy back in school. I feel bad about that. Oh, and there's the girl who broke up with me twice. I'm not happy about her. If I saw her at a reunion, I'd be annoyed with her. So I started making lists, and I came up with, I don't know, maybe 5 or 10 people. And then it's like, well, what about, is there anything unsaid? And by the way, listeners, if you want to do this, this is a great exercise with paper and pen. Start making a list. You don't have to address the list, but start making a list. And I'll be like, well, I've never told my mother I loved her. I love her. So she went on the list. There's something unsaid.
Yeah.
I've never told so-and-so this or so-and-so that. And I start writing it down, and then I write the issue. I call it now a truth audit. And then they'd be like, all right, now call those people. I said, no way. I'm not calling the bully from high school and telling him that I resent him.
And this was white pages days. So you open the white pages, find their name, and get their home phone number, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Or I have to call someone and get help to track them down. And it was a horrendous idea to me that I'm going to call these people. They're going to think I'm an idiot. But I got coaching through it. Firstly, they helped me see the upside. Like, I might get freedom and peace, and I might get more connected with that person. So you need to see the upside. Otherwise, why would you ever have a tough conversation? And then I needed to see what I was afraid of, because without seeing that, I had no clarity and I had no access to the conversation. But when I realized I'm afraid he's going to think I'm a total idiot for calling him 20 years after school and telling him this, and that he might get defensive. And the coach said the most amazing, powerful words to me. She said, then tell him that. Lead with that. And that gave me access. I'm like, okay, I could call him and say, I think you're going to think I'm an idiot calling you 20 years after school. And I'm a bit worried you might feel defensive, and it's not my intention to attack you. And he said the most amazing thing. He said, well, tell me, what do you got? How can I help? I'm like, what? And so I told him the issue, and I said, and now I'm letting go of it. And I wanted to let you know, you don't have to do anything. And he said, well, is there anything I can do now to help you or us move forward? And it just blew my mind that my reality before calling him was, this is a jerk and I don't like him. And after that, my reality was, people may not be who I think they are. And he ended up inviting me to his home. And I got to sit there with this guy who used to be a friend way back. And it was so moving to me to be at his home when normally he would have excluded me from the invite. And this is when we were both back in our hometown just to visit parents at the same time and ran into each other at a pub. And he said to me, like at midnight, after we've had several drinks, he said, I don't think I would ever have the courage to make the phone call you made.
Wow.
And that was such a validation for me that this man whose respect I actually wanted. This is why it was so hard for me, because I really liked him and respected him, and he kind of bullied me and put me down. And here he was saying that. So I like to say that the tough conversations we haven't had form the boundaries of our world. And when you do lean into those conversations, if you're willing to take a risk, your reality can literally shift.
That was extremely powerful. And attaching to a story to it like that just made it that much more powerful. That makes absolute sense. And there was a lot of aha moments in there. So this one that was one of those like rewind and listen to again for everybody listening. That
Thank
was
you.
great. Yeah,
And
that
I'd
was
and
good.
I'd like to say, because I don't want to scare people off, right? Like I've been around the block a few times, and I've done some really scary conversations. Like I've risked prison to apologize to somebody. But I've built up to that over time, and I've done
Sure.
it with coaching. So I don't want people to think, oh my God, I've got to confess to adultery today because I'm hearing this. No, you don't have to do that. You can practice with the little ones. You can practice with, I had somebody a few days ago send me a link to an event on Facebook Messenger. Now, I haven't heard from this person for 7 months. And what I did hear at that time was, I don't think we really should hang out because we don't really have a lot to say to each other. I was like, okay, that's pretty clear. And then she just sends me a link to some, like, promoting some event. It felt spammy and promotional.
Mm.
And I wanted to block her on Facebook. I don't want to hear from you. This is inappropriate. And then I thought that could be a thing. She sees that I've blocked her at some point, and now she's like telling people in the community that guy's a jerk and he blocked. So I went through this whole thing in my head about something as simple as getting a little spammy link that I didn't like. And I decided to reach out to her and say, and just tell her my truth. It took me 5 minutes to get clarity because I didn't want to offend her.
Right.
But it can be as little as that, or someone's late for you and you don't feel respected. You're right, they're 10 minutes late. How do you artfully have those conversations? You don't have to start with the huge ones. The little ones can be awkward as well, and you can get to practice with those and work your way up.
Yeah, and you just said five. You said you had about 5 minutes to gain clarity.
Yeah.
So you didn't have what I would call an emotional reaction, right? So you took some time.
No, I did. I
Well,
had the emotional reaction
inappropriately.
first.
Okay. Yeah.
First is the emotion. I don't like this. I just want to block you.
Yes.
And then I asked myself, wait on what's going on. And that's kind of wussing out because I'm not facing up to this. What's my truth? And then I started, and I have a process as a worksheet. And if you like, we can give you listeners the free download at the end of the
Absolutely.
episode. There's a worksheet, and it's wonderful. It's like, well, what do I hope might happen out of reaching out? And then what am I afraid might happen? And then do I have a request? And I did. I had a request, please don't send me stuff like that. If you think of me personally, send it to me with a personal message, but
Mm.
don't send me some link without context. That'd be my preference. And it opened up a really nice dialogue with this woman. She was like, wow, you got me thinking now about all the other people I sent it to and how could I have done that better? And then I sent back a message, and it was like back and forth. And now I feel more related to her. I feel closer to her than I had
Yeah.
before she sent that. But I
Yeah.
could
So
have wussed out.
yeah, but you didn't. Yeah. Through I'm assuming. Okay, and I know assuming does, but through all your practice and your years of doing stuff like that, you knew that you shouldn't wuss out of that situation, right? That you needed to take that process, and and being consistent with processes like that makes you become aware of it. And I
Yeah.
just love. I wanted to mention that pause you had because you didn't type it. How about you didn't type in your emotional reaction, right? So or block her right away. You allowed yourself to process it, and you talked about being late. I think a lot of people have that friend or two that is just constantly late for everything, but they're always afraid to let them know how that makes them feel, right? So they just deal with it, and then it gets
Yeah.
frustrated, and they tell their partner how their person's annoying. I love them to death, but they're so annoying because they're late all the time.
Yeah.
You know, yes, I think we all know somebody like that. And how how do you suggest someone to approach that specific? Let's talk about that specific situation. So how do you suggest somebody to approach them? Is it when the moment happens, or is it later on, a couple days later?
Well, if you have the awareness and the resources in the moment to speak it, let's say you've got enough practice with this, or you don't have too much charge on it, right? If you got a lot of charge on it and you're really annoyed, then it's going to be even harder. But if you have the resources, great, do it in the moment. That's the ultimate that we're heading for. If I can catch what's happening and get clarity in the moment, then I might speak up and do it there and then. But if it doesn't happen in the moment, and many of your issues, it's already passed. It could have been yesterday or last week or last month or 10 years ago that the thing happened.
Right.
So it's already too late to do it in the moment. That's fine. The next best is to do it when you listen to a podcast like this and you get some realization and you're like, okay, now I've got the awareness, and you go back. I went back 20 years, 30 years in some cases. So that's a good time to do it. And then the way to do it, again, when you have this worksheet and the 4-step process, it's going to make it so much easier for you. You can even print it out, write out your answers, and have it in front of you when you call the person, or even if you go to lunch with them, have it in front of you and say, I wrote stuff down so I don't forget anything. You don't have to pretend that it's all off the top of your head and whatever. No. So should we use this as an example, being late? I can take people through the process.
You know what? Let's use it as an example. And then I want to follow up so I don't forget after we do this example. You mentioned earlier about the boundaries. Like, I want to know why this is so important to do. Like, why can't we just sweep it all under the rug and just move on? I know we mentioned a little bit about it, but let's talk about it after we go over this example.
Well, we can use this example for that too.
Beautiful.
So let's do that in reverse order. If I don't speak up about the person being late, I'm already paying a cost. There's already a cost. There's a cost in that I like that person less, and there's a cost in that I might be less inclined to meet them for lunch. I'm going to gossip or complain possibly about them to somebody else. So now someone else is just hearing, oh, that person's late all the time. And now we're kind of colluding in that. So that annoyance is going to fester, and I get to pay over time, maybe for the next 10, 20 years. If I have the conversation up front, the cost to that is I might feel awkward, and there's a chance it might not go well, but I would rather pay up front, rip the Band-Aid off and see what happens and take the risk of it not going well than pay over time. I think it's much more expensive to pay over time. Yeah. So let's look at how the conversation might go artfully. Firstly, you get clarity. So you do the worksheet, and the worksheet will ask you, what's the issue? All right, my friend's always late. I'm waiting 10, 15, 20 minutes, and I don't feel respected. Mm. So that's helpful to bring it back to the feelings. I don't feel respected, so I feel a little bit less than, or I'm not worth as much because of that. Kind of triggers that in me if you get that much clarity. And then secondly, what's your hope out of this conversation? Like, what could go well? Oh, okay. All right. Well, what could go well is firstly, that I'll be understood, that this person will at least understand the impact that it's having. That's a win for me. Even if they choose not to be on time, I'd like to be understood and heard. Secondly, they might change their behavior and they might be on time. And then I get to feel closer to them and enjoy hanging out with them more. And I get to be more at peace. So you get to learn so much about yourself in every potential tough conversation, or every time you speak your truth, get more clarity. Like I just, got 3 things about myself in that example that I may not have realized before.
Yeah.
And then next question would be, what's your fear or concern? Okay, how could this go badly? Well, I could feel awkward. They could feel awkward. They might feel attacked. They might decide not to be my friend. They might think I'm a jerk and then badmouth me in the community. So I worry about that sometimes. So you got that written down. And then what's your request? Okay, my request would be that you be 5 minutes early. to every time we're going to hang out together, you know? Or it could be that we meet, you know, somewhere where I'm going to be comfortable, meet at a cafe I like, and I'll bring a book and I'll bring my work, and, you know, and I'll allow an extra half hour for the meeting. Who knows?
Right.
But come up with a request so that if you want them to alter something, so that they know what you want from them.
And do you need a why? Like why? Like I want you to come 5 minutes early because.
That's not part of the worksheet, but we'll see when I go through the 4 steps of having the conversation. We'll
I'm
see if
getting
that
ahead of
comes
myself.
up.
Yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself. I see.
We'll see if it comes up. You know, I'd probably give them context for sure. And then the last part of the clarity is, what might this look like from their point of view? Like, just try and step into their shoes for a moment. Might look to them like they're just trying to be really efficient with their time, and they're like, I want to get all this stuff done and I can get there right on time, and then something happens. You know, they might have the best intention. They might feel embarrassed already about being late. Like, I don't know, but you start looking at it from their point of view is really powerful.
I was gonna say that might be my favorite part of that whole exercise is that empathetic point of view, putting yourself in their shoes.
Yeah.
That's extremely powerful, especially when you start to have the conversation, so you don't attack them, right? Because when you come from that empathy, you're more of like leading the conversation from the heart than your brain, kind of,
Yeah,
right?
right. Our default, and I'll speak about me. My default is I'm working it all out in my head. This is my world. And the default perspective is that my world is correct.
Mm.
I don't have a lot of room in there that someone else has another world. The authentic relating movement talks about getting their world, and they talk about shared reality. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then someone gave an example once about a parade. You got a little boy watching the parade, and you've got the father watching the parade, and the little boy walks away going, that was the best truck parade I've ever seen. And the father's like, what? He said, yeah, those trucks are amazing, because the kid's really into trucks. So he saw all the model trucks that were towing all the floats.
Ah.
Father didn't notice any of that. They both experienced different parades. They both had different realities. And so what we're looking to do in a tough conversation or speaking our truth is, we've shared reality. This is how it was for me, but now tell me, how is it for you? So let's use the being
Yeah.
late as an example.
Yeah.
The four steps to having a tough conversation, and this comes with the download. 1, ask permission. Hey, hey, Jack, I want to talk to you for maybe five minutes, maybe 10 minutes tops, about something that's been bugging me, and I want to talk about it because I want to feel closer to you and enjoy our meetups more. Do you have time now? Right. So what I did is I asked permission, and I slipped in the hope. I think that's a good place to do it, because they're more likely to say yes. And if I don't tell them that, they might assume the worst. Someone says we need to talk, I'm worried.
Every time.
Yeah. So give them a context. Hey, I want to talk, and this is my hope. This is what I want out of this conversation.
Cool.
Something positive that they can share in. So I
Cool.
slipped in the hope, and then most people say yes, and then I might share my concern. You know, my concern is you might feel defensive or attacked, and that's not my goal. And also, I'm concerned that I might not get the words right, and I might kind of fumble through it. And I want to do a good job with this conversation. So, you know, can I proceed? Yeah, go for it. All right. When you are late, I notice I feel disrespected. I feel like you're not valuing me or my time, and it's just each time I can feel it now in my belly, kind of tightening up. And I notice it's happened often. I'd say like 8 times out of 10, you're maybe 5, 10, 20 minutes late. And my request would be that you be a couple minutes early. Like I just love to be there and just have you show up on time. That would feel really good to me. And I wonder if you're open to that. And then we'll see what they say. And then step 4. So I made a request. That was step 3. Here's the issue. Here's the request.
Yeah.
Step 4. How is it for you to hear this? Is it weird? Is it inspiring? Is it, do you feel like I'm against you, which is in my attention? Like, how is it for you to hear this? And I'd love to get your world on this. And do you have any other ideas? You might have some ideas better than what I've come up with. And then you shut up and listen.
David, like I've been doing personally for me a lot of inner work, a lot of learning how to have better conversations. And as you explain it, I've at part 1, 2, 3, I find myself getting very good at, and I can name multiple scenarios just in the past week where I've had these. That step 4 is extremely powerful, and I see where that's been missing in those kind of the requests that I've been making. That step 4, and so I'd like you to like can you say that step 4 again
Yeah.
for us?
Yeah. Step 4 is get curious and listen. So you've got your ask permission, share one hope and one fear, share the issue and a request if you have it, and then get curious and listen. And this is where you get collaborative. Hey, let's sort this out together. And I will tell you, Justin, is a confession. When I first created this process, I didn't have that step either. I was doing more tough monologues versus tough conversations. Because again, I work it all out myself and I want to get my result. That's the way I'm coming at it. And someone pointed out that, I've got really great friends. Someone pointed out, you really need to get their world after you've shared yours. Otherwise, you might be generating a tough conversation for them now. Now they've got some charge on it and they feel a bit embarrassed or whatever, and you're
That
not even giving them space or
just
finding out.
happened. That just happened to me yesterday with my wife. And I was like, and then we started, we're very good at talking it through. So we ended up talking it through, but I missed that last part, right? Because I was like, I knew I needed to preface it with, I know you might have a weird reaction to this. However, this is how I feel. This is what I would like to do. And then she like had a reaction to it and I was like, I kept telling her, this is why I had to like tell you, because I knew you were going to react this way. And I never really allowed her or gave her that collaborative opportunity to just say, hey, maybe there's a different option for it, or what are your thoughts on it? And so that's really cool. That's really powerful stuff. I really appreciate you sharing that and coming up with this.
Yeah, you're welcome. So first thing that comes up for me is, do you have any interest in going back to your wife and saying, hey, I feel like I missed a step in that conversation and I'd like to just check, how was it for you that I brought that up? And do you have anything lingering, anything else you want to say, anything that didn't get expressed, anything I didn't hear? Maybe you left it totally complete with your wife, but if
So
there's
we did,
anything,
yeah. You're
oh, you
saying,
did.
yeah. We eventually but it could have been a lot smoother, just
Great.
because we've worked on this a lot over the past year, our communication. So I did eventually, as she's saying, I go, I completely understand where you're coming from. And then we started talking about have you ever heard of Enneagram?
Yeah.
So she's oh God, why do I'm a 7. And she is a 6 or a 3. Why do I keep forgetting what number she is? It's new to us, right? So that's why. So we were talking about, and then we talked about it and was like, well, this is why I want to do things like that. And I was talking about doing a fast, right? And then she's like, well, because I'm that 7, and that's my type of person. And she's like, well, and I'm like, and I understand now why you would have that reaction to it, because you're more of like that type of. And so that's kind of how we continued our conversation to realize how we both had different viewpoints on something,
Yeah.
why one person felt one way. But I didn't open it up to begin with, and it could have been a lot smoother.
Yeah. Well, you bring up a really critical point. I did a diagram. I drew a little noodled a diagram like 15 years ago about this. It's like there's a pipe between two people, and the pipe's only got enough room for so much information, and it can usually only take information in one direction at a time. So if I'm trying to send my stuff down the pipe and she's trying to send her stuff down the pipe, it's getting jammed.
Good,
So
good
we
visual.
need to take turns. And this, you probably heard of the talking stick in a group. Sometimes they might have a talking stick, and whoever's got the stick gets to talk. That's not a dumb or silly idea, even with two people.
Ah,
So we need to practice taking turns. Now, on this download that we're going to give away to people, there are some pro tips. And one of the tips is, if they don't have the space to really hear what you're bringing, let's say they've got a lot of charge, and we'll use the example with your wife. You bring your stuff, or we'll use the late example.
yeah, late.
When you're late, then I feel X, and the person jumps in with, well, oh, you've been late for me, and you know what, blah blah blah, whatever. They may not have space to hear you. You asked permission and they said yes, but they might have revoked permission in the middle, right? Now
Yeah.
they've got their stuff. You can go one of two ways. If it doesn't seem that strong, I might say, all right, I want to hear that. Could you give me a couple of minutes to get out the rest of this? And then I'd love to hear anything you've got to say. So you can ask for permission for them to be in a listening space and you to be speaking. You can re-establish that, or they call it iterating context. Let's go back to that. I did ask permission. Can we still do that? And if they say yes, take another shot at it. If it looks like they have too much charge, just switch roles and just listen. And then once they've gotten it out, you want to say, all right, I think I get that. Is there anything else? And just give them a chance and then come back to it. All right, I think I get all that. Can I say the rest of my side now? Do you feel open to hearing it? And you know what? They may not, Justin. They may not. Or
Yeah.
they may say yes and then
Right.
show that they're not.
Right.
But you can just do your side of it,
Yeah.
which is just checking for permission. I'd like to share this. Can you give me a couple of minutes? All right, it looks like you've got a lot of charge on this. How about I listen? You go. Well, let's take, these are 3 words which I think could change the world. Let's take turns. How about
Yeah.
one of us go first, the other one will listen, and then we'll switch. That's a game changer right there.
Let's take turns.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of conversations with people that have never heard that before, and I love it. It's so simple. Makes total sense.
Yeah.
Let's take turns. Yeah.
What we would need is, can we catch it in the moment? That's the thing. It's so hard. Like, you just get into, I got to get my point across, and you got to get butt here. I'm arguing for my position or whatever. It's the responsibility of the most aware person in the room to shift it.
Boom. Right there. I mean, that was exactly what was going through my mind as you said that, is one person needs to have awareness.
Yeah.
Of it.
So if you catch it, then it's your job to lead the conversation and to direct it.
Yep.
And if you don't catch it, hopefully they'll catch it. Like, oh, wait, we're both arguing here. How do we bring this? How do we wind this back?
Yeah.
So that we both get heard. And maybe you don't do it in the moment. Maybe you realize later, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. So maybe you realize it later and say, can I have a do-over? I think I really messed up that conversation. Can I have a do-over?
Yeah.
You'll often get a round 2
or
a round 3.
Or what I think, or personally what's happened to me sometimes with those conversations, is that person a day, an hour, 2 days later will reach out to you and say, I've been thinking about that conversation we had, and I think I reacted it wrongly or not like the way I wanted to. Here's what, I hear you out now, so at least you got it out there, and it's on their mind, and they're thinking about it.
Yes, I actually have I have a bias towards truth and speaking truth.
Yeah.
I do think 1 in 10 times, I may choose not to speak the truth, and maybe 2 in 10. There are times when I just feel it's not worth it. The cost is going to be higher than the gain. But say 8 or 9 times out of 10, I believe it's worth it, even if, particularly when you have this worksheet, because your chances of it going better are so much higher.
Okay.
But even if it doesn't go well, I had a conversation with a woman who I didn't really want to come to my birthday party, and I'd invited a group of 6 people, and it would have been a bigger thing to not invite her. So I put the invitation out to the group, and then I realized, oh, in my world, she kind of sucks the energy out of the room sometimes and pulls all the attention to her. And it's my birthday. I want the attention on me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do I address this? So I got coaching from a couple of different people. I got clarity, and then I had the conversation with her, and she wrote back to me and said, yeah, that doesn't feel good. I'm not going to come. Because I said, you're still welcome. And my request is that you bear in mind that it's my party and I want the attention on me. And if you do something that seems to be drawing the attention back to you, could we have a signal that signal you and let you know? And she said, let me feel into it. And then she wrote back and said, that doesn't feel good to me, so I'm not going to come.
Hmm.
That's an example to me of a conversation not going well, because I was thinking she might say, you're right, I totally do that, and this is your night. You're going to have such a good time. That was my hope.
Right.
Didn't happen. She decided not to come, and I think that was the right outcome. And we haven't spoken since. She wasn't a good friend. She was more of an acquaintance.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm fine with that. I think that's the way it should go. So even if it doesn't go the way your mind thought it should go,
Yeah.
that still might be the way it should go. Even if your partner breaks up with you, even if you lose the job, what's the positive outcome of the negative outcome?
What about, yeah, that was awesome. As you say that, it's funny because, David, you have to realize, I mean, this, you're not the only person that has those type of people in their life. There's so many people that I know there's a handful of people I've talked to about them having that person in their life and they don't know how to approach them. They don't know how to talk to them. So these are totally like relatable subjects you're bringing up. And I love that, that's why you do what you do. And that's why I think it's amazing that you're choosing that route in life. And I hope that you like expand on it and grow it and reach more people and as many people as possible, because I think it's very well needed in today's society. Um, the, the what about when you're in this is just a curious question. If you're in a group of people, let's say you're in a group conversation and you don't like what they're talking about, this kind of relates to that. I would say is you don't feel comfortable with the subject. Maybe it's a group of guys and they're busting on their wife or something like that. And you just don't feel comfortable in that conversation or whatever the situation is. How do you do it? Do you just remove yourself, or do you actually speak out of how you're feeling and then remove yourself? Or have you ever had that happen, or do you ever talk about that?
Well, let's go a little finer in the example so that I can find something in me, and then I can speak from that. So you said they're busting on their wife. What's an example?
I was just using that as one example. So
How about they're speaking about women in a way that doesn't feel respectful?
great. So, I had a similar situation over the summer. I was on a golf course and there was a couple guys, in the past, I might've engaged in that convo just to fit in. Right. Which,
Yeah.
unfortunately, it happens to a lot of us. However, now at that moment, because of the work I've done and my switching in values and everything in self-development, I did not want to be a part of that conversation, and I didn't engage in it. So so let's use, yeah. Let's use that for an example. Like
Yeah.
they were talking about women in the way that I did not.
Yeah. So that can be a tough one because, I might want approval from these guys. I might want to fit in. I might want their company. One thing I realized years ago is I sometimes want approval and to fit into groups that I don't even like.
Mm.
Like, that was a big revelation. It's like, I don't even like these guys. And it was the way they were speaking about women that particularly had me realize I don't like that at all. So I think a ninja move, if you're willing to be brave and to take a risk, is to just simply share your truth and say, in fact, let's see if we can use the model, the 4-step process with the group. Hey guys, I notice I'm feeling uncomfortable about something. I don't want to be a buzzkill, but I'd like to feel more connected to the group and to all of you guys. Can I bring it up? Would that be okay? So now I'm asking permission. I'm giving a little bit of context. They know something's going on, and I shared a hope. I'd like to feel more connected, more part of the group. And right now I'm feeling more isolated. And if they say yes, then I'd continue and say, my concern in bringing it up is that you might not want to hang out with me. Like, this guy's a buzzkill, man. Why would one want to be with this guy?
Mm.
And I think and again, my hope is that I feel more connected. So I want to say it anyway. Yeah. And then I'd say, when you're talking about women that way, I feel uncomfortable. And I think what it is it doesn't seem like you're speaking in a way that's honoring of women. And I notice I'm biased towards that. And I wonder how you guys feel about it. Would you agree that this doesn't sound honoring? Like, if a woman was listening, would she feel lit up and inspired by this conversation, or would she feel something else? What do you guys think? And then I might throw it open to them and see what they think and if they agree. So now I'm getting curious, right? Get curious and listen is the 4th step. Like, what do you guys think? Do you think that talking like this is it worthwhile? Because it can be fun and it's kind of like us against them. But is there a cost? And would you guys be open to speaking about women in a different way? I'm wondering. And if you're not, that's okay. I might go and do something else, right? That's totally up to you. But I'm curious, what do you think? And then throw it out to them and see, maybe we could have a discussion about it. Might be a pretty awesome discussion.
Yeah, that sounds like, that's beautiful. Love it. Especially if you're kind of stuck in that scenario and there really isn't much of a way out sometimes.
Yeah.
That's a great way to approach it.
Now, something that I noticed as I was speaking, because this stuff just, you and I haven't planned that, but what came out, what I noticed was I wasn't judging them. And I wasn't speaking with any charge. I was just like, I noticed this is how it is for me. So I was owning my experience. And then I was getting curious. Like, what do you guys think? Would you agree that if a woman was listening, that this wouldn't be good? And does that matter? And would you be open to something else? And then, like, I'm actually curious to find out what they think. So now I'm connecting with them about something I really care about. So I've already shifted the conversation.
Yeah, you did. Totally. That's brilliant. That's genius. And, let's flip it to somebody, if we don't know how to have those conversations and people still have them, they just judge and attack. Right. So they'll say, gosh, I don't like how you're having that viewpoint. That's not right. That's a wrong viewpoint. Like you know what I'm talking, where I'm going with this. Right. And then how do we react to that? Do we instantly go to empathy and say, well, you know what? These people just don't know. This person just doesn't know how to properly bring this up. So let's see if we can structure this better. Or how do you have a reaction to that?
Yeah. Well, I love that question, and I can answer it quickly. And I notice I have to go in 2 minutes.
Yes.
Because at the top of the hour, but let me answer that. So what you're talking about is tough conversations from the other side. This is like we've been talking about when you've got an issue you want to bring to someone, but when someone's got an issue and they're coming at you with a lot of charge, Um, in the training we do in prisons and in corporations, we call that emotional Aikido. You want to like get all, here's what you do. One, do nothing except breathe. You got to catch it and you got to realize what's happening. Go, oh, this is a chance for emotional Aikido. Right. It's on your drink bottle. I love that. Do nothing. Just breathe. Secondly, once you've heard it, like you really listen and see if you can get their world, reflect it back. Hey, can I say it back to you and make sure I got this? Because they need to be gotten. They need to know you got this. Reflect it back. And then when you think you got it, say, is there anything else? Just fully get their world. And then once you've got everything, say, hey, can I share, what's coming up for me as I hear that?
That's
good. But you got to get it. We train this, and we were training prison staff in this. And in a break, one of the staff was coming at one of the leaders, like, you shouldn't have done that with this guy. That wasn't the right way to handle that. And I watched her start to defend. And I was close enough to whisper in her ear, Aikido. And I watched her. I got goosebumps now. She stopped and she took a breath and said, tell me more. It was a beautiful thing. Now, if we could only have someone, whispering in our ear all the time, we've got to catch it. And
thank you.
And on that note, can we tell people where to get the download?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'll put it in the description show notes too. So go ahead. Yeah. Where can we get it?
Yeah, great. So playforreal.life. I have 3 quick invites there. You can get the download for free. And I have a blog. I'm excited about Tough Conversations with David Wood. If you'd like to listen to me as well as the amazing Justin, then you can subscribe at playforreal.life. And if something resonated for you in this conversation and you're like, yeah, I want my life to be better and I want work and my business to be better, see if you qualify for a discovery session with me. I don't charge for those sessions because it's how I find the right people to work with long term. And I'd love to hear from you.
Discovery session. I love that. Thank you so much. And right before we jump off here, I want to ask one last thing. You can keep it brief. I ask every one of my guests at the very end, if you can, and I'm curious what you would say, if you can go back, David, and tell your 18-year-old self anything, and your 18-year-old self would listen, what would you tell them?
Communication is everything. There are levels that you can't even see. Do as much personal growth as you can.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you, David.
My pleasure.
All right. Stop here. What's the best